Thank you very much, Anya. Good morning, everyone. You're very welcome to our SEAI business briefing today. My name is Ali Donnellan.
Your mic has muted there, Ali.
Yeah. I'd say I touched it. Yeah.
Apologies for that. Technical difficulties still going on in 2022. So I was just saying that I'm going to be your host for this morning, and
You're gone again. Sorry.
it's happening.
You're back now.
Am I back?
Yeah,
Yes.
You're back.
Apologies. Can't remember where it was, but we are delighted to have you here this morning, and we really hope you find it an informative session. The purpose of today's briefing is to provide you with some practical tips on how to reduce your use this winter, and also provide you with an overview of the business supports available to SMEs who are looking to embark on their energy efficiency journey and also reduce their carbon impact. So I'm just going to go through some quick housekeeping. So as you know, this event is being recorded. We will have a Q&A section at the end, and you can submit those questions through our Q&A bubble. We will endeavour to answer all questions at this time, but if there's any questions we can't answer, we will follow up with you after the webinar, and all the recording and slides will be distributed after the event. Luckily for you, I'm not the only person presenting today. I'm joined by my colleagues Cullen and John from SEAI.
You're gone again. Sorry for annoying you.
Am I back?
You're back.
Apologies, guys. We will get there eventually. So my colleague Gray is going to go through tips on how to reduce your use this winter, and Owen and John are going to go through the support schemes and grants that are available to businesses through SEAI. We're also joined by Shane McCullough from the Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland, and Shane is going to go through SVCI's Energy Efficiency Loan Scheme. We will have a Q&A at the end, and we're also joined by Fergus Sharkey, the head of our department here.
You've muted again there, Ali. Sorry.
Okay.
Maybe just take the headset out altogether.
Well, I just ditched the headset.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Apologies, you go through these rehearsals and you think everything is going to go off without a hitch, but here we are. So I hope everyone can hear me now without my headset. But so basically, the first thing for a business when they're embarking on their energy efficiency journey is really to understand your energy use. SEAI have the Energy Academy, which is a free e-learning platform designed for businesses to understand where their energy is used. And it's really your first step for embarking on your energy efficiency journey. It is an online platform that is available to you 24/7 at a time that is convenient for you. We encourage CEOs and managers to join the Energy Academy, but it's really open to anyone. We know a lot of businesses that roll it out to all their staff as part of a sustainability initiative. Businesses can save up to 10% on their energy costs alone, on their energy use alone, through changing their behavioural techniques, and you can learn all about this on the Energy Academy. We have 28 modules available on the Energy Academy, including business energy efficiency, lighting efficiency, introduction to electric vehicles, and solar PV. I've included a couple examples here of how the Energy Academy helps businesses. So the first one is it's free training for your staff. It's free upskilling, and we provide you with practical business focused training, which is great for boosting staff morale and also really helps with staff retention, which I know is a big issue that is affecting the industry right now. It also is great for improving your business's image. Customers nowadays are a lot more conscious of where they're bringing their business, and they want to see that the businesses they're going to are taking the steps towards sustainability. And with the Energy Academy, you will be given a certificate of completion after you've completed our modules, so you can use these certificates to demonstrate to your customers that you're taking steps towards energy efficiency. Also, the Energy Academy will help you identify simple, low-cost, no-cost solutions to reducing your energy use, and in turn will help you save costs on your energy across all areas of your business and home. I've done a lot of the modules, and I've even picked up a lot of tricks at home to help me save on my energy costs. And lastly, it will also help you reduce your energy waste and increase your energy efficiency and lower your carbon footprint, which is one of the big reasons why we're here today. The next step for any business is to create an energy action plan. SEAI run the Introduction to Energy Management Training workshops. These are free trainer-led workshops which help businesses embed good energy management practices. They are 2 one-hour sessions in which you will create your energy action plan, and as part of this workshop you will also receive a free energy management guide and workbook. You can check out our SEI Eventbrite page for the next available workshop. We run them every 2 to 3 months, and I actually run the workshops, and I can tell you that the next workshop is on the 28th and the 30th of November, and it will be our last workshop for 2022. There's still places available, so I would encourage anyone who's interested to definitely register, as you'll not only start your energy action plan, but you also meet other businesses who are on a similar energy efficiency journey as you. I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Ray, who's going to go through with you some practical tips on how to reduce your use this winter. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Ali. And just to follow on, I suppose, in that journey that you've outlined there, we do start with advocating people understand their energy use, as you rightly said there. And then it's about optimizing that energy use. So you understand it first and then optimize it. And the reason we advocate doing it in that sequence, when you think about it, it's very logical. You don't want to run straight into an investment in some of the solutions that my colleagues are going to talk about later, without first optimizing, because otherwise you're going to be wrong sizing or building in bad habits from day one, basically. So I'm just going to quickly run through some of the most practical parts of day-to-day operations to consider when trying to optimize energy use. And I've broken it down into heat and electricity and a couple of different aspects of electricity. And depending on your business, obviously, the importance of heat versus electricity could be quite variable. For example, in a hotel situation, in energy terms, heat will be about 70% of the total energy use. So heat and heat from a sustainability point of view, particularly if you're burning fossil fuels, will be particularly significant. So, obvious things like adjusting set points, and it may seem relatively small to adjust the set point by one degree, but when you think about it, even on a cold day like today, outside temperature is 6 or 8 degrees, you're trying to bring it up to 19 instead of bringing it up to 20. It does make a significant difference, and over a whole winter period, there's about 10% there per degree of heat. And then on the other side, again, depending on your business, if you're in warehousing or hotels or whatever, you'll have quite an air conditioning load, and the same principle, but from the opposite side of the temperature spectrum, to keep it as high as possible. 24 degrees instead of 23 degrees is going to make a big difference. And marrying the two in together, so often we'd see heating systems that heat up to very close to where the air conditioning temperatures kick in. And in essence, you get one hunting against the other then. You get a heating system bringing it up to 20 or 21 degrees, and then the air conditioning kicking in almost immediately as the heating system overruns. And in essence, you're just pumping heat into an air conditioning system. Doesn't make any sense. So having that gap, a significant gap of at least 5 degrees between the two, is very important. And then the whole area of timers, when they come on, can you turn them off before the close of play? And again, a typical office situation, you can turn heating off at 4 or half 4. The heating will remain in the building for hours thereafter. And servicing, and making sure that the plant is operating properly. Have you asked your service technician, for example, if you have a condensing boiler, is it actually condensing? And then obvious areas around seals and drafts. Percentage-wise, very hard to tell really how much is on the table there, but certainly 15-20% in heating is typically what we would see with a good deep dive into a heating system without any investment at all. And then the same kind of principle from a lighting point of view. And again, depending on the industry, lighting in an office or a hotel situation will typically be about 30% of the electricity used. And so making sure that it's not being used when not required. So been switched off when not needed, motion sensors, maximizing the use of daylight when actual artificial light is not required, reducing lighting levels, looking at external lighting, and obviously then moving across to LEDs. LEDs have a payback in many cases well under a year. Just as an interesting aside, we're SEAI are in a very modern building. We're sitting in it here today. It's an award-winning A-rated building, and our own engineers, just as we kicked into this winter, had a look at the lighting situation. You know, a lot of feeling that there's nothing on the table there. They've taken 30% off the lighting load in an A-rated building alone by doing these kind of basic, simple things that I'm talking about. So it's not insignificant. Same principles about electricity in general. And going back to Ali's point about knowing where your energy has been used and understanding where your electricity has been used. So, you know, if you've got circulation pumps, depending on what kind of industry you're in, whatever electricity you're using for plant and equipment, for printers, for laptops, knowing what are your big users and asking questions about them. Why are they being used the way they are? And only then starting to think about solar PV, and we'll talk about solar PV later as we go through the morning. Understand your bill as well. In so many cases, we see examples of electricity bills that can be quite complex to understand, to be quite frank. And you know, how many of us just sign off electricity bill as it stands without really asking the questions about on a line-by-line basis? You know, are there, for example, standing charges? Are there power factors in some cases in the industry? Do we really understand what we're paying for? Because it can have a significant difference, and are we on the best tariffs that are available? And then from other equipment point of view, you know, checking plant and equipment that can be in eco mode. Is it really in eco mode when it needs to be? I talked about motors earlier, so you know, we can hear the motor running in our air conditioning system here in the office today. Does it need to be running at that intensity? Can there be variable speed drives installed? Are there leaks? Are there hot spots? And particularly air systems are renowned for leaks. So if you're using air for any kind of plant or equipment, it's an easy job to check for leaks, and it can have a huge impact on the actual running hours of the compressors. And ensuring that any heavy energy equipment is maintained as per manufacturer's equipment. If you're lucky enough to have an energy management system, which most buildings do, and they're often set and have drifted over the years to, I suppose, in a colloquial sense, to a no complaints option, where in other words, systems are being managed to just keep it running and to stop any issues of complaints about heating or complaints about lighting, or a particular classic hotel situation is a case in point. But turning it on its head and looking at the building management system from the point of view of, is it being run as it could be from optimizing energy? Typically, there's 10 or 20% on the table. So when you think of all those kind of factors, and as Ali said, understanding your energy use and then trying to optimize it before you move into investment, two fundamental reasons for doing it. There's money on the table for zero investment, by and large, or very little investment. And fundamentally, it puts you in a right size situation by doing these kind of steps first. So if you do move on to investing in heating systems or heat pumps or solar PV or whatever, you're investing at the right size rather than overexpending and building in bad habits from day one. So at that, I'm happy to hand over to my colleague here, Owen, who will take you through the support scheme for energy audits.
Thanks very much, Ray. So today I'm just going to briefly talk about the support scheme for energy audits, the SEAI scheme, and I'll also briefly mention some of the other business supports that are available for businesses and SMEs. So the support scheme for energy audits, it's an energy audit voucher scheme. So it offers SMEs a voucher of €2,000 to get an energy audit with a registered energy auditor with the SEAI. So this scheme is open all year round for applicants. To be eligible, your company must be a small or medium enterprise, must have less than 250 employees, and then also have a turnover of less than 50 million a year, and then spend at least €10,000 per year on energy, and also then be tax compliant. So if you're looking for any further information, and also to apply online, then it can be found at the link there below. Now, just to discuss some of the trends that we're seeing from the audits that we have reviewed. So the table there on the left, we can see that over 70% of energy audits are in either wholesale and retail trade, manufacturing, accommodation and food services. That includes restaurants, cafes, hotels, bars, pubs, gastropubs, and also agriculture, forestry and fishing. And then on the right then we can see the top recommendations from our energy auditors. So solar PV, LED lighting, energy management, monitoring and metering, refrigeration upgrades, and renewable heat would be the most common recommendations that we see from energy auditors towards the SMEs. Now the next slide just gives an example of a supermarket in Cavan. So this is just taking a kind of screen grab from one of the reports. So we can see then that if the SME implements the recommendations, that they will be able to reduce their organization's emissions by 50% and also reduce their annual energy spend by just over €42,000. So on the left, then the table at the bottom, then we can see, so it has the action then, the energy saving per year, the emissions reduction in tons of CO2 equivalent, and then also has the cost and then sort of the payback period. So we can see there that the energy management system has the shortest payback period. Now the most expensive investment there is the solar PV, but it does give the most saving then throughout the years. And then the supermarket can also avail the community grant then for 30% grant funding. And then the next slide then, so this is just a table of the different supports that we have. So my colleague Ali previously mentioned the SEAI Energy Academy and the Energy Management Training. So we also, the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications released a climate toolkit for business. So this is the carbon calculator tool for SMEs, which allows them to input their carbon emissions. And then, so it will allow them to see then their total emissions then for the year, and it also will allow them to create kind of a tailored action plan. We also have an SME guide to energy efficiency and then an energy management guide as well. So I mentioned the SVCI scheme. We also have the energy audit compliance scheme, which is a mandatory scheme for large and obligated enterprises. And then we have launched a new non-domestic microgeneration scheme, which my colleague John will talk about as well. Then we have the community energy grant scheme, which is a grant scheme for community buildings, businesses in communities to invest in energy efficiency. Then we also have the support scheme for renewable heat, which is a scheme for businesses, non-domestic heat users who are on fossil fuels to implement renewable heat sources. So so there's an installation grant of 30% towards a heat pump or an ongoing operational tariff for biomass or biogas. And then we also have the SEAI Exceed scheme then, which is an energy efficiency certification scheme. And so now my colleague John McComb will briefly run through the non-domestic microgeneration support scheme.
Thanks, Owen. This is the non-domestic microgen scheme, and it specifically concentrates on solar at the present. So the non-domestic microgen scheme background, the department announced the microgeneration support scheme on the 21st of December 2021. So there's a grant available of a maximum of €2,400 at the 4 kilowatt peak, and that tops out at, so the maximum is a 6 kilowatt peak. So you get the 2,400 for a 4 kilowatt peak, but you can go up to a system size of 6 kilowatt peak. So as I mentioned, the maximum again is 6 kilowatt peak. That again, for a visual, is approximately 16 panels and an area of 25 meters squared. The difference between this scheme, one of the main differences between this scheme and the domestic, is there's no BER required, and it's available to all pre-2021 buildings. SEAI launched the scheme on the 22nd of December 2022. As I mentioned, it's separate to the domestic solar PV scheme. But in saying that, the application process, the grant offer and payment process is very similar to the domestic scheme. And this scheme falls under the Clean Export Guarantee, or the CEG tariff. So basically, for any exported electricity, it's subject to supplier rates. So who can apply for the scheme? The grant is available to businesses, SMEs, the agricultural sector, public sector bodies, schools, community centres, and non-profit societies. So a little bit about solar PV for people that don't quite understand it or know a little bit about it. So solar PV modules convert sunlight to direct current power. An inverter converts the solar DC power, that DC power, into alternating current, or AC power, that we use in our homes or our business. Your business uses electricity from the solar PV modules first, with additional demand supplied by the grid. A meter measures your electricity production and consumption. Excess power, as I mentioned, generated by the solar PV modules, is fed into the electricity grid. And then the option with this then is battery storage. So this last slide is just a very simple visual of when you measure what input is being generated by your solar PV system. It's good, as Ray and Ali before mentioned, is to look at what we're using and what the output is. So this is a very, very simple visual of, let's say, an office. So a desktop computer, for example, over 8 hours. So what to do is, I think Ray mentioned there as well, is to look at your usage. So look at what you're using, whether it's an office, warehouse, a garage, GA club, and look at lighting and kind of do the maths basically of what you're using via what you're generating, and it gives you a good visual of what you're doing. Just this is based on a rate of 43 cents as of October 2022. I'll now hand you over to Shane, who'll talk to you about the Energy Efficiency Loan Scheme.
Thanks very much for that, John. And hello, everyone. Thanks to the SEAI for inviting the SVCI to partake in this. I'm Shane McCullough with the Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland, and what I wanted to speak to you about this morning is just one particular financing mechanism that is available to you. First of all, who are the SVCI? We're Ireland's national promotional institution, and essentially we're Ireland's state bank for SMEs, and we're owned by the Minister for Finance. And what we're here to do is to reduce the price of borrowing for SMEs, make it easier for SMEs to get loans, to access financing, and to increase competition between lenders within the market. And I suppose why I want to just emphasize that is we're very much here to help Irish SMEs and make it easier for them to ultimately invest in their own businesses. A quick bit of context in terms of what we've done to date. We're only around since 2014, but we've 3.2 billion of lending gone to almost 51,000 Irish SMEs. So we're very much here to help. And SVCI operates on a cost recovery basis. So we're not looking to turn a profit. We're just covering our expenses in terms of trying to deliver these low cost, flexible solutions to Irish businesses. What I'm really here to speak to you about today is the SVCI Energy Efficiency Loan Scheme. So this is just one particular instrument mechanism that's available to help you fund investment in energy efficiency in your business. And this covers a range of different kind of investment types, and some of which the guys have already covered off already. We mentioned of solar panels, There's LED lighting there, building management, energy management systems, equipment. There's a range of products here, and I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. First of all, I just want to take you through the actual features of this scheme. So in terms of the actual loan features of this scheme, it allows for loans of between 10 and 150,000. The reason that there's such a broad range of loans here is really to best match the kind of underlying investment. It's to enable you to undertake relatively small investments at the 10,000 level, or some of the larger, more in-depth investments that your business might require. Equally, something we've managed to achieve with this product is very flexible loan terms that probably wouldn't be readily available in the market without the SVCI involvement. And that means that there's repayment terms under these loans of between 1 and 10 years. And that's really about trying to match the repayment term with the payback on the underlying investment for your business, with a goal of, where possible, ensuring that your monthly repayment on a loan under this scheme in or around will match the saving that you will achieve on your own bills within the organization. So obviously something like LED lighting might have a very short 18 to 2 year payback. Some of the solar PV or other installations may have a longer term payback and require that additional flexibility of a 10-year repayment term. You will find very much reduced interest rates for loans of these size compared to other existing market rates. So under this scheme, I think as it stands, you can get loans of starting at 4% with one of the participating lenders. I'll touch on in a moment who they are. And this scheme is currently available and will be available all through next year as well. To jump into the more operational aspect, and how do you actually get one of these loans? It's a two-step process. So first of all, you would go to the SVCI's own website and look at the eligibility application form there. You send that to SVCI. We turn that around within 48 hours. Typically, we actually turn that around within 24 hours. And we then give you a code that says you are eligible to apply for a loan under this scheme, which you would then bring to one of the participating lenders. What's required for the eligibility application form? So I suppose loans under this scheme are for energy efficiency, but specifically they're for investment in equipment that is on the SEAI's EEE register of energy efficient equipment. So for those of you not already familiar with this register, it's on the SEAI website. It's the same listing that the revenue commissioners use in terms of identifying what assets are suitable for the accelerated capital allowance. It's a very easily searchable register. It goes down through different kinds of product categories. So for those of you that can see this, I'm conscious the text is rather small. It includes the likes of lighting, motors, catering equipment, refrigeration, all the kind of key assets you would expect to see. So with the exception of electric vehicles, which aren't eligible for this scheme, given they're well funded through the manufacturers and dealers anyway, all the other equipment on this register is eligible, including charging points for electric vehicles. So you would go to the EEE register, find what the asset is that you're looking to finance, and then you complete those details on the application form on the SVCI website and send that back to SVCI. And then, as I say, we will revert to you with an eligibility code, at which point you can then bring that to one of the participating lenders. So at the moment, we have AIB, Bank of Ireland, and Capital Flow all providing loans under this scheme, and we will have additional lenders in the coming weeks as well. So I would say in that light, follow us for updates. Our socials are the best way of finding out who and when those additional lenders will be available under this scheme. And I suppose looking towards the future, perhaps looking towards next year, SVCI will have additional schemes to support you in your investment in energy efficiency. And those schemes are likely to look beyond the EEE register more broadly at energy efficient investment, and also more likely to look at some of the larger loan amounts over and above the 150,000 limit that we have under this scheme. So thank you very much for your time, and I will hand you back for the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Shane, and thank you to all our panelists for a very informative session. I really hope you all found it useful and informative. So as I said at the start, this is now a Q&A part of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please do put them into our chat box. So I'm just going to have a check here now at the Q&A just to see what we got during the webinar. Okay, so we have a question from Brano. So, good morning. We do work with a lot of schools and educational institutions. Major usage in these premises, and the BEC grant was removed and it was replaced with the community grant, requiring major upgrade in heating insulation byproduct. Will there be another form of grant introduced to help schools? That's a very good question, Brano. As I previously said, we are joined by Fergus Sharkey here today, our head of division. So, Fergus, would you maybe be able to provide some info on that question? Thank you.
The BEC was not replaced with the community grant, it was just renamed, and it's broadly the same grant. So schools can apply for 50% funding under the community energy grant, as it's just a different name for the better energy communities. The better energy moniker was kind of dropped off a number of our programs. Effectively they can get 50% for anything, as you said there: insulation, heating systems, lighting systems, solar PV, etc. It can all be done under a community energy grant application. Separate to that, there's a number of other things happening. So one is we have a partnership program with the Department of Education where 100% funding is being provided between the two parties for retrofitting schools. That's only doing a few dozen schools every year, but that's building up to a national program of retrofit funded out of the Department of Education. There's also additional measures in the summer works and the summer work schemes that the Department of Education, from an energy basis, there's more and more energy stuff in there. And the last thing is, although I don't have the details of it yet, you will have heard during the budget that every school in Ireland is going to get solar panels fully funded by the government over the next number of years. So all of those bits coming together, there's a significant investment going out towards schools, and there's different options there. If a school is motivated to do something themselves immediately, and they have the balance of funding, they can go down the route of the community energy grant, as they always could. You're muted again, Ali. I think you give up on the headset.
Does anyone else have any questions? As I said at the start of this webinar, the recording and the slides will be sent out after the webinar. Yeah, if anyone has any other questions for us now, we're happy to answer them.
I might just make just for the recording and so on. I know that people often ask us about support for solar PV as a standalone measure. So John obviously talked about the support that's there for smaller systems up to 6 kilowatts. We are awaiting and in discussions on a policy decision for support for larger systems. That isn't something that we can give a definitive update on, because we were in the progress of transitioning away from grants for larger solar PV systems towards an export premium basis where you'd be paid by your supplier a premium payment. I think some of that is delayed now, so it may be that there's going to be grants continuing in 2023, but it's a decision that has yet to be made. It's just something that comes up routinely on these calls, so I better address it rather than rather than not.
Thank you, Fergus. Brano's actually come back with a question, but the question is there support for single measures? For example, replacing lighting only?
I don't think so. I think the community grant guidelines require a minimum number of measures. 3 seems to be, and lighting can only be supplied or funded, generally because it's such a very attractive investment, can only be funded as part of a package of measures. I would have to double check that, but it's very clearly stated in the current guidelines that are on our website for the community energy grant, no longer BEC, now CEG. But it's very clearly stated in there, and I don't think anything on that is changing for the 2023 period on those specific pieces around single measures. We are working on a new scheme, which we're calling our non-domestic retrofit scheme, which will be available for schools, and that will be very much kind of a pick and mix where you can do single measures, but again, we're thinking about lighting, and it's probably, I mean, the lighting industry asks us not to support lighting as a single measure because it creates a slowdown in investment as people kind of wait for grant approval and things like that. Because it's such an attractive measure, they almost don't want to muddy the water with grant support for such an attractive measure. So generally, we're thinking about lighting in that new scheme, but there will be sort of single measures, for example, insulation within the new scheme we're developing.
Great, thank you very much, Fergus. And if no one else has any further questions, we'll probably bring this webinar to a close shortly. Just want to thank you all again for attending this morning. Really hope you found it informative, and thank you as well to all my panelists. And we will be sending out the recording and the slides of this webinar after it. Thank you very much.